And we got to talk about the Nebraska game for just a little bit. We won't talk about it for too long because we got a lot of topics to get to. And if you want to check out my reaction fully to this game between Indiana and Nebraska, me and Justin over on the Nebraska channel talked about this game in length in the post-game live show on Saturday. That was a blast. Obviously, for Nebraska fans, it was not, because it was an absolute demolition. That is what I'm calling this game. It was not close in any facet. Indiana destroyed Nebraska. That's all you can say. And sometimes you can say, well, the final score doesn't indicate how close the game was. This game was not close. Indiana destroyed Nebraska from the jump. It was a fantastic performance from Indiana. And honestly, one of Indiana's best performances probably ever. Because when you talk about the stakes for this game, obviously, Indiana's had blowout wins before. Even earlier this season, talking about beating Western Illinois 77-3, but that's Western Illinois. Knocking off UCLA 42-13, which at the time, that was a massive win for Indiana. To be able to go out there and knock off UCLA by as much as they did in the Rose Bowl, getting their first ever Rose Bowl win, that had a lot of significance. But then looking at UCLA, they're not having a great season. But then you got this game right here. Big noon kickoff. The Fox pregame show is at this game, and it's on Fox. National television eyes are on this game. People are paying attention to this game, probably more so than Miami-Louisville. Let's face it. Miami-Louisville was a good game as well, but probably more people watching this game. A lot of eyeballs on this game. And Indiana goes out there and completely manhandles a comparable opponent, a team that probably has more talent. I would say Nebraska is more talented than Indiana, but the Hoosiers just did not let up from the jump. First drive of the game, they go down the field and they impose their will on the Cornhuskers, running all over them, passing all over them. Indiana was absolutely on fire. And it didn't stop from there. Nebraska just kept making mistakes when they got the ball. Indiana was getting stops. They were stopping them on fourth down. They forced multiple turnovers. And Indiana, Curtis Rourke did have one interception, which was kind of tough. But other than that, Indiana basically played a mistake-free game, and Nebraska kept turning it over tons of times. And yes, Dylan Raiola, very young guy. He's a true freshman. You can't really expect a true freshman to be able to play all that well on the road in a tough environment. Yes, I'll say tough environment, because Indiana football, now that they're starting to sell out crowds for the first time in years, Indiana can have a decent environment. No, it's not your Tennessees and Alabamas of the college football world, but Indiana, when they sell out the crowd and they actually have a reason to be passionate, Indiana has some decent fans. Very loud, not too bad at all. So that impacted Nebraska as well. The atmosphere was incredible. And Indiana just didn't let up. And the fact that Nebraska basically just quit, I don't think I've ever seen in my life. In a big game like this, a team that Indiana has played where they enforced their will so hard on the other team that the team just quit. Nebraska quit in this game. They completely gave up. I know that some people would say, well, Indiana was playing so well that that's why they won by as much as they did. Well, that's why they won by as much as they did, because, yeah, the Hoosiers played fantastic football all game long. But Nebraska just gave up. They realized we have no shot to win this game. There is no point continuing on while we're getting absolutely destroyed in the game. And the thing is, for Nebraska, is looking at the rest of their schedule, I mean, it could unfortunately be the same thing as last year, where they started out with a great record and then they fall apart the rest of the season. I hope that doesn't happen for Nebraska fans. That would be ugly if somehow they lose out and go 5-7. I still think they'll make a bowl game, but Indiana might have just wrecked their season, because they imposed their will and absolutely destroyed them in a game that was, for a lot of people, a swing game, a pick-em game that was going to be really close down the wire. But that's not what happened, and that was just because of how well Indiana played. Curt Cignetti, you do not see him reacting in a positive way for the most part when talking about, after the game and with the win or anything. He's usually very cool, calm, and collected, and he was. He wasn't jumping up and down like Tom Allen when they beat Akron in 4 overtimes. That's not Cignetti's style. He's all business. But he still was like, he had to smile. He was like, we played well today, but we got to keep this up. We can't take any opponent for granted. We've seen a lot of teams do that this year. Indiana definitely has to continue to play like they've played so far. That's what's helped them win these 7 games, start out 7-0. And if they keep on playing like that down the rest of the season, anything is possible, including things that no one would have ever thought at the beginning of the season for Indiana. What's even more impressive is even when the backups came in, whether it was out of necessity, we'll get to that, or whether if it was because of just them having the lead by so much that, Cignetti was like, hey, we're going to put in some of the the bench guys, hey, they came in and they were great as well. So that shows you Indiana's got some depth, and that really shows you that Indiana is a legitimately good football team. That this is not a fluke. This is, not a drill. Indiana football is good. They are really, really good. And we'll find out how good they are as the season continues to go along after they just completely destroyed the Nebraska Cornhuskers.